The sun set over a strange, rocky planet that few had ever dared to explore. It was far from the bustling galactic hubs, a place known only for its dangerous creatures and wild terrain. But to the alien hunters, it was the perfect place for their next conquest. These hunters weren't ordinary beings. They were elite, trained to take down the toughest, most terrifying creatures across the galaxy. Today, their target was a creature unlike anything they had ever faced. Massive, with sharp claws and teeth that could tear through metal, the beast had been terrorizing the local settlements on this barren world. It was said to be as strong as 10 men and faster than a starship in full flight. The hunters had heard the rumors, but they didn't care. They were confident in their skills. They always got their prey. The leader of the hunting party, a tall alien with pale blue skin and glowing eyes, gave the signal to start the hunt. His team moved quickly, their sleek armor blending in with the harsh landscape. They carried advanced weapons, plasma rifles, energy blades, and tracking devices that could lock onto their prey from miles away. The planet's dust kicked up as the hunters trekked through the rocky terrain, determined to find the beast. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower in the sky and the hunters pressed on. They were beginning to wonder if the creature had escaped when suddenly one of the trackers beeped. A soft glow appeared on the leader's wristband, indicating that the beast was nearby. The hunters quickly spread out, closing in on their target. The beast, sensing the danger, let out a terrifying roar. It was a sound that shook the ground beneath their feet, sending chills down their spines. The creature appeared from behind a jagged rock, its enormous body covered in thick, spiked fur. It charged at them faster than they had anticipated, but the hunters were ready. They fired in unison, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts at the beast. The creature roared again, but it didn't stop. It swiped at one of the hunters, sending them flying through the air. The team regrouped, quickly adjusting their strategy. They knew that the only way to take it down was to use their teamwork and advanced technology. The fight was brutal. The creature's strength was unmatched, and it fought with all the fury of a cornered animal. The hunters dodged and countered, their plasma rifles sizzling as they hit their target. But the beast wasn't going down without a fight. It crashed through rocks and trees, leaving destruction in its wake. Finally, after what felt like hours, the hunters managed to weaken the creature. It was bleeding from several wounds, its movements slowing. One of the hunters, a smaller alien with quick reflexes, made the final move. With a swift strike, they pierced the creature's heart with an energy blade, sending a shockwave through its massive body. The beast let out one last deafening roar before it collapsed, dead. The hunters stood around it, panting and covered in the dust of battle. Their weapons hummed softly as they powered down. They had done it. They had brought down the beast. The alien leader stepped forward, nodding in approval. "This will be a victory for the ages," the leader said with a grin. "We've killed one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy." The other hunters cheered and high-fived each other, already imagining the rewards they would receive for their successful hunt. They could see it now, the medals, the fame, and the riches. It was all within their grasp. The leader gave a command, and the team started to prepare the beast's body for transport. They would take it back to their ship, where they would present it as proof of their victory. But even as they celebrated, there was a nagging feeling in the back of the leader's mind. He couldn't shake the thought that something was off. The creature had fought too fiercely, too intelligently. It wasn't like any other wild animal they had hunted before. But he dismissed the thought. They had won, and that was all that mattered. As they secured the beast's body and began the long trek back to their ship, none of the hunters noticed the strange, faint markings on the creature's collar. They were too focused on their victory to consider any other possibility. The alien leader gave one last look at the massive, fallen creature. It was a triumph, a moment to savor. But little did they know, this victory was just the beginning of something much bigger than they could ever imagine. The alien hunters worked quickly, their voices filled with excitement as they prepared to transport the massive creature's body back to their ship. They were proud of their success, already imagining the rewards and praise they would receive. The leader, still feeling the rush of victory, barked orders to his team, making sure everything was in place. But as they moved closer to the creature's body, something caught the eye of one of the hunters. It was a small, almost hidden detail, something they hadn't noticed during the chaos of the battle. The hunter, a tall, muscular alien with sharp eyes, knelt down beside the creature's massive body and gently lifted a piece of fur. Underneath it was a collar. The collar was strange, unlike anything the hunters had seen before. It was made of a soft, durable material that glinted under the fading sunlight. The markings on the collar were not from any known alien language. They looked almost human, with symbols and designs that were familiar yet out of place. The hunter stood up slowly, his heart racing as he turned to the leader. "Look at this," the hunter said, holding up the collar for everyone to see. This isn't just some wild animal. It's wearing a collar." The leader squinted at the collar, confusion starting to replace the pride on his face. He had been so focused on the battle, so sure of their victory, that he hadn't thought twice about the creature's behavior. But now, with the collar in his hands, doubt started to creep in. This wasn't just a wild beast. The creature had been domesticated, cared for, trained. How could it have been someone's pet? The leader muttered. This thing was killing everything in sight. It was a monster. But the evidence was clear. The collar had been worn by the creature for some time, and its markings were unmistakable. This beast, this terrifying creature they had so easily written off as a mindless killer, was something else entirely. It was someone's companion, possibly even a beloved pet. As the hunters gathered around, they began to question everything. The beast's behavior suddenly made sense. It had been acting out of fear and protection, not just pure aggression. The way it fought with intelligence, using its surroundings to its advantage, didn't match the typical behavior of a wild animal. One of the hunters, a sharp-minded alien with a keen sense of observation, knelt down next to the collar, examining it closely. "This isn't just a collar," the hunter said, his voice filled with suspicion. "It's custom-made. It's designed to withstand extreme conditions. Whoever owned this creature must have been prepared for battle." The leader's mind raced. Who could possibly have tamed such a beast? Who would bring a creature of this size and power into a battle, not just as a weapon, but as a companion? The questions piled up, but no answers came. "Whoever this belongs to," the leader said slowly, "they didn't leave a trail. No one should be able to tame something like this. Not alone." The thought of a human being involved suddenly hit them like a shock. The markings on the collar, the creature's extraordinary strength and intelligence, everything pointed in one direction. Humans were known for their resourcefulness, their ability to adapt and survive against all odds. But could a human really have domesticated such a beast? It seemed impossible. Then, as the hunters began discussing their options, the leader's communicator buzzed. A voice, crackling with static, came through the device. The voice wasn't alien, but human. A calm, measured tone, unmistakably confident, echoed in their ears. "You've made a big mistake," the voice said. "That creature wasn't just a wild animal. It was my pet. And you've killed it." The hunters froze. Their confusion deepened, and a chill ran down their spines. The reality of what they had done began to set in. The beast wasn't just an obstacle to their mission. It was a personal loss for someone they had not even begun to understand. The tension in the air grew thick as the hunters stood around the creature's body, still holding the collar. The strange discovery of the collar had left them all uneasy. They had just realized that they hadn't killed a wild beast, but someone's beloved pet. As the realization sank in, the weight of their mistake pressed down on them. They had killed a creature that was more than just an animal. It had been a companion, someone's trusted ally. As the leader tried to make sense of it all, the sudden crackle of his communicator interrupted the silence. The voice on the other end was cold, almost distant, but it carried a sense of undeniable authority. "You've made a big mistake," the voice said again. "That creature wasn't just a wild animal. It was my pet. And you've killed it." The hunters exchanged looks, their unease turning into full-blown tension. No one had expected this. They were skilled hunters, trained to deal with the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, but this was different. How could they have known? How could they have assumed the creature was just a mindless killer when it had been someone's pet? The voice on the communicator continued, each word cutting through the silence like a blade. "You're far from the nearest settlement. You think you can just walk away with the body of my pet like it's nothing?" The voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. The leader of the hunting party could feel the anger building in the human's words. The leader hesitated, unsure of what to say. He was used to facing furious beings after a successful hunt, but this felt different. This human sounded like they knew exactly what they were talking about. He could feel the weight of the mistake in every word. "We didn't know," the leader said, trying to sound calm. "The creature attacked us first. We were only defending ourselves." "We didn't realize—" "You didn't realize?" The human's voice interrupted sharply. "You didn't realize you were killing a pet, a member of my family? You think just because you're a hunter, you get to make those decisions?" The leader's mind raced, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. But there was no easy way to fix this. This wasn't just about killing a dangerous beast anymore. It was about the creature's true identity, a creature that had been loved, cared for, and trusted by someone who clearly cared deeply for it. We're sorry. We'll bring the body back," the leader said, his voice softening. "We didn't mean to cause harm." There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, there was only silence, but then the human spoke again, their voice carrying a new tone, a chilling calm. "No, it's too late for apologies. You'll come to me now. You've crossed a line, and you'll pay the price for it." The leader's heart skipped a beat. Something about the human's voice sent a shiver down his spine. The confidence, the calmness, it was like they had dealt with situations like this before. The hunters weren't prepared for this kind of encounter. They were trained to hunt, not to face someone who had the power to make them feel this vulnerable. A new sense of urgency filled the air. The leader turned to his team, his mind working furiously. "Get the body on the transport. We're heading back to the ship. We'll deal with this human on our terms." But just as they started to move, the ground beneath their feet rumbled. The hunters looked around in alarm. Was it an earthquake? No, it felt like something much bigger. A shadow loomed over them. They turned just in time to see a figure standing tall on a nearby cliff, silhouetted by the setting sun. The figure was human, but not like any human they had encountered before. This person looked powerful, confident, and completely unafraid. With a sudden movement, the human jumped off the cliff, landing with a thud on the rocky ground below. The hunters froze, unsure of what to do. The figure approached them with steady, purposeful steps, not at all concerned by the weapons they had trained on it.
One quiet morning, something extraordinary happened. A fleet of alien ships appeared in Earth's sky. These ships weren't here for peaceful negotiations or friendly visits. No, they were here for war. The aliens, a powerful race from a distant galaxy, had sent their most terrifying weapons, an army of killer robots, to Earth. These robots were huge, stronger than anything Earth had ever seen, and designed to destroy everything in their path. Their mission was simple: wipe out humanity and take control of the planet. The robots weren't just ordinary machines. They were built to be unstoppable. With thick armored shells, laser guns, and advanced AI, they were meant to crush any resistance. They could move faster than the speed of sound, and their sensors were so advanced that they could detect any human activity from miles away. It seemed like there was no way to stop them. The aliens thought that no species in the galaxy could resist these machines. They believed they were the superior race, with technology and weapons far beyond anything Earth could muster. As the alien ships hovered above major cities, the robots began to land. Huge explosions rocked the Earth's surface as the machines touched down. They marched into cities like unstoppable giants, crushing buildings and vehicles in their path. It was chaos. People screamed and ran, desperately trying to escape. The world was watching in horror as this new deadly force invaded their planet. The aliens, observing from a safe distance, were confident that their plan would work. They had watched Earth for years and knew that humans had limited technology. They assumed the people of Earth would panic, flee, or surrender. The robots would easily take control, and Earth would be theirs. But there was one thing the aliens didn't count on: humans. Despite the overwhelming odds, Earth's response wasn't what the aliens expected. There was no panic, no immediate surrender. Instead, people all over the world began to react in a way the aliens had never seen before. Governments and military leaders quickly sprang into action. The United Nations called an emergency meeting, and world leaders joined forces to plan a defense. Despite having no advanced technology to fight back with, humans began working together as one. They knew they couldn't match the robots' strength, but they didn't need to. Humans were resourceful, and they had something the robots didn't: the ability to think, adapt, and fight with everything they had. People all over the world, from ordinary citizens to military soldiers, began to organize. They gathered supplies, prepared makeshift weapons, and created plans to fight back. Humans weren't going to just sit there and wait for the robots to destroy them. Instead of running, they started to make their stand. They didn't know how they would win, but they were ready to try. The aliens, still confident in their victory, watched as the humans began to fight back with surprising creativity. They couldn't believe it. Humans had no chance against such advanced technology, yet here they were, not giving up. The aliens couldn't understand what was happening. They were prepared for fear and surrender, not for this kind of defiance. And so, while the robots continued their destructive march across Earth, something strange was happening. Humans weren't just surviving, they were beginning to resist. The aliens might have had the power, but Earth had something they didn't: the will to fight back, no matter the cost. And the aliens had just made a huge mistake. They underestimated humanity. As the killer robots continued their relentless march across the planet, humans were not backing down. While the world's cities burned and buildings collapsed, something unexpected was happening in the shadows. Ordinary people, farmers, factory workers, students, and soldiers came together to form a plan. They weren't waiting for governments or military leaders to save them. They were taking action on their own. At first, the humans didn't have any powerful weapons like the robots. Their best technology couldn't compare to the advanced laser guns and armor of the machines. But what they did have was something far more important: creativity, determination, and an incredible ability to adapt. Around the world, small groups of people started to work together. They didn't have fancy technology, but they had knowledge and quick thinking. In every country, people began building makeshift weapons from whatever they could find. They set up traps in abandoned buildings, rigged old cars with explosives, and used the terrain to their advantage. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start making the robots second-guess their progress. In one city, a group of civilians created a plan to ambush a single robot. They knew they couldn't fight it head-on, so they decided to use the environment around them. They hid in nearby buildings and used their knowledge of the city to lure the robot into a narrow alley. Once the robot was trapped, they used a combination of old-fashioned explosives and homemade EMP devices to disable it. It was a huge victory. For the first time, humans had taken down a robot using their wits and teamwork. As news of this victory spread, hope began to rise. Other groups across the world followed the example of the civilians. They couldn't take down every robot, but they could disrupt their mission and slow their advance. The robots were incredibly powerful, but they were still machines, and machines have flaws. Human ingenuity began to exploit those weaknesses. In another part of the world, a group of hackers, many of them teenagers, decided to try their hand at taking down the robots' communication systems. The robots relied on a complex network to stay connected to each other, coordinating their attacks and relaying information back to the alien commanders. The hackers didn't have much, but they had their skills with computers. They set to work, infiltrating the robots' network and sending false information. The robots, confused and unable to communicate properly, began to make mistakes. Some wandered off course, while others turned on each other, thinking they were under attack. Meanwhile, military forces around the world were working with the resistance groups. Though their weapons couldn't defeat the robots, they could at least slow them down. Soldiers used guerrilla tactics to sabotage the robots' movements, setting up decoys and traps. Using old artillery and weapons, they managed to damage a few robots enough to make them malfunction, causing them to shut down or explode. It was a slow and steady process, but every victory, no matter how small, was a step closer to taking the fight back to the invaders. The aliens, still watching from afar, couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had expected Earth to fall quickly, but instead, humanity was showing something far more dangerous: persistence. The robots, despite their power, were being outsmarted by a species they had underestimated. The aliens had thought they were facing a primitive race that would cower in fear. Instead, they were facing an enemy that refused to give up, no matter how impossible the situation seemed. What the aliens didn't understand was that humanity didn't need the most advanced technology to fight back. What they needed was heart, ingenuity, and the belief that they could win, even when the odds were stacked against them. And with each robot that fell, the humans gained more confidence. The unlikely counterattack had begun, and the aliens were starting to realize they had made a grave mistake. This expanded version builds on the resilience and creativity of humanity, showing how ordinary people use their resourcefulness to fight back. Let me know if you need any further adjustments, or if you'd like to move on to the next part. As the days went on, Earth's fight against the alien robots grew more intense. Despite being outmatched in terms of raw power, humans continued to surprise the invaders. The robots, with their superior technology, were meant to be an unstoppable force. But humanity's resilience was proving to be something the aliens had not prepared for. The robots might have been stronger, but the humans had something the machines lacked: a spirit that refused to be broken. Across the world, people kept finding new ways to fight. In cities that were once full of life, there was now a sense of unity. People who had never met before worked together, combining their skills and knowledge to stay alive. Engineers, soldiers, farmers, and even teachers all had a role in this desperate struggle. They were all part of the same team, working toward one goal: survival. In a small town, a group of survivors built a secret base underground. They had no advanced weapons, but they did have old machinery and tools. They repurposed these to create makeshift armor for the soldiers, using scrap metal and even parts from broken robots. While it wasn't much, it was enough to give them a fighting chance. These people used their resourcefulness to outwit the robots. They set up hidden traps that would disable or destroy the machines before they could do any harm. The group had to stay hidden, but they used the land to their advantage, attacking when the robots least expected it. In another part of the world, humans had figured out that the robots relied on a special energy source to operate. So, a group of scientists and engineers got together to devise a plan to cut off their power supply. They set up a series of coordinated attacks on the robots' fuel stations, sabotaging them and creating massive energy shortages. Without their fuel, many of the robots began to stall or shut down entirely. It was a huge victory, but the humans knew that they couldn't stop here. They needed to keep pushing, keep fighting back, and keep finding new weaknesses to exploit. Meanwhile, a group of skilled hackers had been working tirelessly to take down the robots' communication systems. They understood how the robots communicated with each other and with their alien commanders. By sending fake signals or blocking transmissions, they confused the robots, making them turn on one another. Some robots mistakenly attacked their own kind, while others got stuck in endless loops, unable to carry out their orders. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to give humans an edge. Even though the humans were clearly outnumbered, they had started to notice that the robots weren't invincible. They began to realize that the robots, despite their advanced design, were still limited by their programming. Humans, on the other hand, could think for themselves. They could adapt to changing situations and improvise when needed. It was that very ability to think creatively, to never give up, that allowed them to gain the upper hand. In the face of constant destruction, people began to come together in ways they hadn't before. Across the world, human resilience grew stronger. People didn't let fear control them. They embraced it and used it to fuel their resistance. No matter how many robots fell, no matter how many cities were destroyed, humanity would not break. There was no giving up, no surrender. It was as if each loss made them even more determined to fight. The alien commanders, watching from afar, were starting to get worried. They couldn't understand how Earth's people were able to fight back like this. They had expected humanity to panic, to run, to beg for mercy. But instead, the human race was doing the opposite. They were adapting. They were fighting back, and they were showing resilience in a way that no other species in the galaxy ever had. The aliens began to question their decision to invade Earth. They had thought that humanity would be an easy target, but now they realized they were facing a much greater challenge than they had ever imagined. Human resilience wasn't just about fighting. It was about never giving up, no matter how hard things got. It was about standing tall in the face of impossible odds and finding the strength to keep going. And as each day passed, humanity's will grew stronger, sending a clear message to the aliens. Earth would not fall without a fight. The war between humans and the alien robots had been raging for weeks. At first, the robots seemed unstoppable. Cities fell, buildings were destroyed, and it felt like Earth's last hope was fading. But as time went on, humanity began to adapt. Small victories here, and there started to add up. People were working together, thinking smarter, and showing the alien invaders that they wouldn't back down without a fight. Still, the tide of the battle was uncertain, and the robots continued to march across the planet, crushing everything in their path. It seemed as if nothing could stop them. But then came the turning point. It wasn't a single victory that changed everything. It was a combination of events that sparked a change in the humans' strategy and gave them the strength to take the fight to the robots. It started with a massive strike led by a group of military leaders and resistance fighters. They had been planning for days, carefully studying the robots' movements and weaknesses. They learned that the robots, despite being advanced, were not invincible. They had power cores, huge energy sources that kept them running. If they could destroy these cores, they could stop the robots in their tracks. The plan was risky, but the humans were running out of time. They couldn't wait any longer. The resistance and military groups worked together to gather supplies, and then, in the dead of night, they launched a surprise attack on one of the robots' main power stations. The assault was fast and fierce. They used everything they had, old explosives, makeshift EMPs, and whatever weapons they could get their hands on. They knew that if they didn't succeed, it could be the end for them. In the midst of the chaos, something incredible happened. The humans managed to get close enough to destroy the main power core. A huge explosion rang out, and the ground shook as the robot's power source went up in flames. One by one, the robots that had been powered by this energy source began to shut down. Some fell to the ground, motionless, while others wandered aimlessly, their systems malfunctioning. The humans couldn't believe it. This was a huge victory. But that wasn't the end. The aliens, still watching from their distant command ships, were furious. They knew their robots were failing, but they were not going to give up so easily. The battle raged on, but now the humans had something the robots didn't: momentum. They could feel the tide turning, and they used that newfound hope to push forward. With every fallen robot, their confidence grew. Across the world, resistance fighters took the fight directly to the robots. They didn't wait for the robots to come to them anymore. They went after them first. Each successful attack was a signal to others that victory was possible. And as the humans gained ground, more people joined the fight. It wasn't just soldiers or resistance groups anymore. Ordinary civilians, once terrified, now stood shoulder to shoulder with the fighters. They used their knowledge of their own cities, their homes, to outsmart the robots and set up clever traps. In one city, a group of teenagers, who had once been hiding from the robots, turned the tables. They used their knowledge of technology to hack into a robot's system and gain control over it. They reprogrammed it to fight for them, not against them. With their new robot ally, they were able to take down other machines, and the victory spread quickly. Word of the hack and the success of the attack gave people the courage to act. Meanwhile, the alien commanders were starting to panic. They couldn't understand why their once perfect machines were failing. They had underestimated humanity, and now their pride was their downfall. The robots' failures and the humans' sudden increase in resistance left the aliens with little choice. They had to send in reinforcements, stronger, more dangerous robots. But even then, the humans were ready. For the first time, the humans were no longer running from the fight. They were taking the fight to the aliens. Every successful mission, every power core destroyed, and every robot taken down was a step closer to victory. The turning point had arrived, and the aliens were beginning to realize that they had made a grave mistake. They had thought that the humans were weak and helpless, but now they knew that Earth wasn't going to fall without a fight. The war against the alien robots was finally over. After weeks of intense fighting, countless battles, and incredible sacrifices, humanity had managed to turn the tide. The aliens had never expected it. Earth was still standing, and the robots that had once seemed unstoppable were now nothing more than heaps of scrap metal. Cities that were once destroyed were beginning to rebuild. The survivors, battered but not broken, stood proud, knowing they had done the impossible. As the dust settled, the world began to take stock of what had just happened. The victory wasn't just about defeating the robots. It was about showing the alien invaders that humanity could not be taken lightly. Earth had faced an enemy with superior technology and power, and yet, through resilience, creativity, and teamwork, humans had fought back. They had sent a message to the galaxy. Earth wasn't a planet to be messed with. But the victory came at a cost. Many cities had been destroyed, and the survivors had lost loved ones. Yet, through the pain, there was a sense of unity. The people of Earth had come together in ways they never had before. They had fought for each other, and now they were determined to rebuild. World leaders, military commanders, and ordinary citizens all worked side by side to restore what was lost. It was a long and difficult road, but humanity had proven it could endure even the darkest times. The aliens, who had hoped to crush Earth in a matter of days, now realized they had severely underestimated the human race. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss what had happened and what to do next. They knew they had to send a message to the alien empire. Their actions were not to be forgotten. Humans had shown their strength, but they also needed to ensure that no more threats would come from the stars. It was time to make sure the galaxy knew Earth would never be a victim again. The message would not be subtle. A broadcast was sent out to the vast reaches of space, directed straight at the galactic empire. The leaders of Earth had decided that it was time for humanity to send a warning, loud and clear. It was a simple message, but one that carried the weight of humanity's survival. "We are not your playthings. Earth is off limits. Come to our world again, and you will regret it." The broadcast was filled with images of the Earth's victory. Footage of the robots falling, cities being rebuilt, and humans working together to overcome the unimaginable played for the galaxy to see. The message was short, but it sent a strong signal. Humanity was not weak, and any future attempts to invade Earth would be met with force. Back on Earth, the people were proud of what they had accomplished. They knew that the war was over, but their work wasn't done. Earth was now a target for other empires that might see their victory as an opportunity for conquest. The human race was now more determined than ever to defend their planet. They knew that they had to stay strong and never forget the lessons they had learned in the heat of battle. The Galactic Empire, watching the broadcast from the far reaches of space, was stunned. They had expected to crush the humans and add Earth to their vast empire, but instead, they were now faced with a warning from a species they had thought insignificant. The message from Earth was clear. Humanity would not go down without a fight, and the next time they came to conquer, they would face an enemy that would not be easily defeated. The Empire's leaders were furious. They had underestimated Earth's resilience, and now they had to reconsider their plans. They had failed, and this failure would not be forgotten. But the Galactic Empire was vast, and their anger would likely lead to future attempts to invade. However, humanity had shown they were capable of defending their world, and this victory was just the beginning. Earth's message had sent ripples through the galaxy, and from that day forward, humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The warning had been sent. The humans had fought for their survival, and now they stood ready for whatever might come next. Earth was off limits, and the galaxy had learned to respect the strength and determination of the human race.